Hello, I'm Bernie Hayes. Today's guest is Dr. Melvin J. Butler, and today we'll be talking about your health on The Bernie Hayes Show. And welcome back. I'm Bernie Hayes, and Dr. Butler, how are you, sir?
Fine, thank you, sir.
It's good to see you. Really good to see you. I'm really good. You know, your resume reads like a who's who in the medical field. I mean, gee whiz. Solace Country Day School was your high school. And then you went to Washington University, got a BA in biology. Harvard University graduate courses, University of Missouri, Columbia School of Medicine, internal medicine internship at Alton Ostener Hospital and clinics in New Orleans, shall I say, internal medicine residency, and also in New Orleans. Teaching, hospital affiliates in Barn Jewish staffing, Washington University School of Medicine, group health plan, BJC. My goodness, you're pretty busy, aren't you, sir?
Well, I've been fortunate, and it's been a long journey, but I really enjoy what I'm doing. I picked a very good profession to help people, because that's when I started off many years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing working at something you love and to be able to continue to do it.
How did you choose the medical field?
Well, I was very good in the sciences in high school as well as junior high school. And that was kind of a direct route to go. And the more science courses I took, the more I became interested in medicine. And, the rest is history.
I mean, you've been affiliated with so many different regional hospitals here. Washington University, Harvard University, University of Missouri, Columbia School of Medicine, Alton Hospital and clinics in New Orleans. Ambulatory experiences for medical students, Washington University School of Medicine, Barnes Jewish staff, my goodness, group health plan, BJC. So, and you have a local, business also. Where's your office?
Well, I've been in solo. I'm a internal medicine specialist, mm-hmm. and I've been in solo practice for approximately 25 years.
Okay, and where are you located?
And we're in the Clayton, Missouri area on Francis Place. A key landmark is I'm in the medical building right next to the IHOP, or mm-hmm. the International House of Pancakes in Clayton, Missouri.
So, okay, an African-American doctor. Do you specialize in any particular thing?
Well, I pretty much see the gamut. But I tell you what's a very strong interest that I have is diabetes and minority patients. It is a prevalent problem that we have, and we as a medical community try to do the best we can. But the problem that I've noticed with many Afro-American patients is getting that patient into the office, specifically male Afro-American patients. That has been a chronic struggle over the last 20 years.
What are the symptoms of diabetes?
Sometimes you can be asymptomatic. Nowadays, with COVID going on, you pretty much, that medical term asymptomatic has become very common in the Webster Dictionary. However, three major symptoms that you can have impotence or erectile dysfunction. You can also have an increase in urination. Thirdly, you can have a decrease in your vision. And typically the erectile dysfunction, when we're discussing male patients, will bring them into the office.
But there are two types of diabetes, two or three types, right?
There are two types mainly, type 1 and type 2.
Okay.
The way that I was taught, type 1 is basically juvenile onset diabetes, and type 2 is adult onset diabetes. And with type 1, usually the patient is not making any insulin in their body, whereas with type 2, the patient is probably making some insulin, but not enough.
Okay. When I was growing up, you know, people refer to as he has sugar or she has sugar. And then I heard the terms sugar diabetes. What's the difference?
Well, it's the same thing. Now we're becoming more medical inclined, and we use the word type 1 and type 2.
Okay. And I also see people losing limbs and going blind and so forth. Tell us, distinguish that between us, please.
And those are some of the going blind as well as losing the limbs. Those are some of the late symptoms that can occur. And as we go through this journey and talk about diabetes, that iterates that the patient should come in early to prevent things like that.
Is that about diabetes itself? Is it avoidable?
Is it avoidable? That's a very good question. There is a genetic component, but in our society in America, there's also a non-genetic component, which consists of obesity and the type of diet that we eat on a regular basis.
That's one thing I want to ask you about, obesity. They say obesity has a direct link to diabetes. And I see so many obese people, I call them fat folks, you know, in our community. Is it because of our diet or what is it, sir?
Well, I think it's several things. Number one, diet has a lot to do with it, as well as lack of some type of consistent exercise. When I see patients in the office, many of them, I always ask the question, well, how's the exercise going? And 9 times out of 10, I know the answer to that question. And the reason I bring it up is because, number one, I want that patient to remember when he or she leaves that the doctor is concerned about lack of exercise. And many say the same, the reason that they don't exercise is because they don't have the time. Obviously, if you've got kids, and I have 2, when they're little, they come first. When they get a little older, they have to do homework, you have to feed them, etc. But the problem is that if you look at eating not as a pleasure but as fuel, and let me go a little further. If I fill my car up with gasoline at the service station near my house, and I'm going to visit an aunt or an uncle, and I pass by another service station, well, I don't necessarily need to stop because my tank is already full. Now, that's one point. The holidays are coming up. And typically what happens is, even before COVID, and now we're trying to get back to normal, whatever that means, so we are visiting more loved ones. So typically what happens, Bernie, is that we will go to Aunt Sally's house and we will eat. Then we will go to Uncle James's house and we will eat. And before you know it, we have visited 3 or 4 people, and at each stop, we've eaten a meal. So you treat your car a lot better than you treat yourself. And what I try to instill in patients is, if you look at it as, number one, eat at one place, whether it's at home or at one loved one's house, and then as you make your rounds, don't eat.
One thing that happens during the holiday season is not only holiday season, I mean every day, everyone craves soul food. And I want to ask you about soul food and certain types of soul food per se, and the characteristics that perhaps are bad for you and things that are good for you.
Well, just like many, my grandparents grew up in the southern states, and back in those days, there wasn't a lot of quote-unquote healthy food. And you get instilled in eating a certain way, and it becomes a treat. But the issue is, you don't necessarily have to eat like that every day. That's what gets us in trouble.
Okay.
Number 2, there are a lot of chefs and cookbooks out there that have talked about eating healthy soul food. Instead of using, if you're looking at making greens for a vegetable, instead of using the greasy meat in the greens, use an alternative, things of that sort. So you don't necessarily have to give up the craving of that particular type of food. It's what you put in it that you might have to change.
My guest is Dr. Jerome Butler. We're talking about your health today on the Bernie Hayes Show. And our location is 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri. Our zip code is 63114. And we'll be back to talk about Dr. Butler more after this.
The Bernie Hayes program is produced at NLEC TV right here at 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri. It's our new headquarters since they closed the 1411 Locust building. We're working to get back into that building. In addition to that, trying to help so many people through a wide variety of safe houses, training programs, transportation assistance, so many ways people are getting help because of all of you that are supporting the work of New Life Evangelistic Center. Now, if you'll send a gift of $25 or more, we want to send you this special, the Bernie Hayes Show cup. And we're giving that to people. It's just a way of saying thank you. So when you send your gift, request a cup. We'll be happy to get it off to you. It's New Life Evangelistic Center, P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri. That's 63166. You can give online at nlecstl.org. Now I'm really asking all of you to join us in praying. The needs are so phenomenal at this particular time. So many hurting and homeless people are contacting us daily, but we're able to help them because of each one of you that are praying, caring, and sharing at this time. Tell your families and friends about NLEC TV and get directly involved yourself.
Now is the time to pray. And as you're praying, please remember New Life Evangelistic Center and its daily work among the hurting, the hungry, and the homeless. Remember the Bible, ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it shall be opened to you.
You don't have to let a spirit of depression sweep over you in the midst of this pandemic. In fact, this could be the greatest Christmas you ever experienced, even though COVID-19 is so rampant. As you come to the Christ of Christmas that changes everything, He turns the system upside down. Read about it in Luke chapter 1 and 2. He enables us to experience the spirit of Christmas that begins to change our lives. For as many as call upon the name of the Lord, they shall be called the children of God. He is the resurrected Christ who provides us hope, regardless of what the economy may do or the government may do or whatever may come about. Our hope is not just in a vaccine, it's in the resurrected Christ. And as many as call upon the name of the Lord shall be called the children of God. I want to encourage you to do that during this Christmas season and watch Him do exceedingly abundantly beyond what you can even ask or think. That's the invitation awaiting to you. Yes, come to Him now and let Jesus Christ, the Christ of Christmas, come and experience His fullness and His power.
And welcome back. My guest is Dr. Jerome Butler. And Melvin J. Butler, I'm sorry, Melvin Jerome Butler. Melvin, I get Jerome mixed up because I always think about the other Dr. Jerome. Tell us about what we can do as African-American men and women, and just the population in general, just to eat better and become healthier.
Well, what I preach, as I stated earlier, 20 to 30 minutes of exercise is not asking a patient to do too much out of their normal being. Now the question is, what I hear most often is the time. Well, maybe if your day starts at 8 a.m., you leave the house at 7:30, maybe a brisk walk before you leave the house. Well, if you're not I hear sometimes, well, Doc, I'm not a morning person. Well, okay, well, we typically get an hour for lunch. I never understood that. How many of us, it takes an hour to eat? It usually doesn't. What typically happens is we take the hour and we might eat in 10 minutes, and then the other 50 minutes or so we're shopping or doing something else. What about walking around the building or in the employment area for that hour? And what I usually try to tell patients is that if you do that Monday through Friday, that just that little bit, you can make the assumption that my job is paying me to quote unquote exercise. So every little bit counts, Bernie.
That's great. I also know we go back to something we talked about earlier too, and that's soul food, or substituting, say, something healthy instead of the hog maws or the neck bones or the bacon that we've been eating. Tell us some substitutes we can use.
Well, like for the bacon. Bacon has a very high fat content. Now, there are some that say, well, I use turkey bacon, but guess how that's made? That's made with a lot of fat as well. So you're going from one frying pan to the other frying pan. Well, if you are a meat person, and I'm not saying that to alleviate meat, but a lean piece of ham is a lot better for breakfast than a piece of bacon, or for that matter, turkey bacon. That's one option. When you're making a pot of vegetables, greens, string beans, or things of that sort, don't use the salted pork, because that's high salt content as well as a high fat content. Three things make food sell. And if it doesn't have a combination of one of the three things on the grocery store shelf, it's not going to sell. Either it's got to have fat, it's got to have sugar, or it's got to have salt. And the unfortunate thing about that is that, Bernie, a lot of the soul food has all three.
Yeah. And Melvin, one other thing that I read in a doctor's office one time, it said that bacon is the worst thing that anyone can eat at any time. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fat content. And it's, I don't know the percentage of it. You've got a little meat on it, and you look at the salted pork, which is basically a form of bacon, and that's what a lot of patients and Afro-Americans put in their vegetables to season it. Then on top of that, we use many of the different seasoning salts and/or sea salt. Salt is salt. So the issue is I try to tell patients to stay away from the salt preparations and maybe go to something like a Mrs. Dash, where you can get the seasoning but not the salt content.
So strict and lean is not good for you.
Correct.
So tell us about African-American doctors. Are there many African-American physicians available now?
We're becoming a dying breed, and that is a multifactorial question. When I came to St. Louis about 30 years ago, there was many. Since that time, many have retired. And I'm one of the few seasoned Afro-American doctors in the St. Louis metropolitan area. Not to say that the younger doctors are, but they're not seasoned, and I'm not using that as a negative connotation. It takes time. That's one of the reasons that we use this term, the practice of medicine. The more you practice, hopefully, quote unquote, the better you get at it. And I see, Bernie, on a regular basis, patients come in and say, Doc, especially male patients, Doc, I really, one of the excuses for me not going to a doctor on a regular basis is that I wanted to be with a doctor that looks like me. Well, I mean, here I am, but as I said, I would say that all patients should see a doctor, no matter what color, every year, and get a physical.
How can they reach you?
That number, the best way to reach me is that number, area code 314-721-6936.
That's really, really fast. I don't know if I can write that fast.
Okay, area code 314-721-6936. We have same-day appointments. I employ three beautiful women who have been with me more than over 20 years. So we really know how to get things done, and we're just one big family, and we are accepting new patients.
Speaking of family, tell us about your family, sir. Are you married? Do you have any children?
I have been married for a very long time. It seems like it was just yesterday. I married my high school sweetheart, and we have two kids, a daughter who's the oldest and a son. Both are grown, and both are doing well. One is working for Twitter, and the other is working for a talent agency in Los Angeles.
Do any of them have names?
Yes, Alexandria and Melvin J. II.
Okay, that's wonderful. Doctor, there's so much I want to talk to you about. And is there a medical society of African Americans?
There is. There is the Mound Medical Society for Afro-American doctors. And as I said, they have been in existence for extremely long time. But every member would agree that we just need to do a better job of getting male patients into seeing primary care doctors.
Is there a screening process for diabetes?
Yes. One of the things that we do is when we're doing a physical, we do a blood test that's called a hemoglobin A1C. I don't want to get too technical, but what that test does is it gives the doctor and the patient, for that matter, an analysis of how his or her blood sugars have been doing for the last 3 months. So that's the measure that we do at least every 3 months on patients. And initially with a physical, even if you're non-diabetic, we will do that test.
So is that analogous to the PSA test for prostate?
It's similar. Correct.
Okay. So it is a blood test. So
It is a blood test.
Okay. And we can get that at your office?
You can get it at the office.
Once again, your phone number, please.
Area code 314-721-6936.
Wonderful. Dr. Melvin Butler is my guest today, and we're at the New Life Evangelistic Center. And Reverend Larry Rice will soon be celebrating 50 years here at New Life. And we'll be right back with Dr. Butler after this.
New Life Evangelistic Center is celebrating 50 years of God's faithfulness. For many of those years, Bernie Hayes has been a direct part of the work of New Life Evangelistic Center. I thank God for Bernie, his faithfulness, and how he is such a legend when it comes to broadcasting throughout the greater St. Louis area. Will you join Bernie and myself as we celebrate the 50 years of God's faithfulness? I want to involve you in the planning committee, for we got a lot of great things in store in 2022. Why don't you call us at 314-421-3020 and be a part of that committee? Or go to www.newlifeevangelisticcenter.org. Will you celebrate the 50 years of God's faithfulness along with Bernie Hayes and myself and so many others throughout Mid-America? I know that the Lord has ministered to many of you through the work of New Life Evangelistic Center. We'd like to have you share your memories with us. So will you call us at 314-421-3020 or contact us at come by 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri. Yes, we're celebrating God is faithful.
Our Black History Moment today is on Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. He was born in 1856 in Hollinsburg, Pennsylvania, the first of 7 children. And Dr. Williams' father was a barber and moved to the family to Annapolis, Maryland. Daniel's mother realized she could not manage the entire family and sent some of the children to live with relatives. He later moved to Wisconsin, where he joined his sister and opened a barber shop. And after moving to a nearby Jamesville, Daniel became fascinated with the local physician and decided to follow path. He became working as an apprentice and a physician of Dr. Henry Palmer. 2 years later, in 1880, he entered what was now known as Northwestern University Medical School. A graduate of Northwestern University, he opened his own medical services in Chicago, Illinois. He was the first to perform open heart surgery in America. Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, African American.
Now you can take NLEC TV anywhere as you put the NLEC TV app on your iPhone or mobile device. NLEC TV is an innovative TV station that's on the cutting edge of community service. On NLEC TV, you'll discover wholesome family, community, renewable energy, and inspirational programming. Those needing energy assistance, food, clothing, or freedom from the cycle of homelessness will find that plus much more on NLEC TV. Now, you can receive NLEC TV by going to 24.2 on your television set or putting the NLEC TV app on your iPhone or mobile device. For further information, call 314-436-2424 or go to nlecstl.org.
Welcome back. Dr. Melvin Butler is my guest, and we're talking mostly about diabetes. Dr. Butler, if a new patient did come into your office, how would you treat them if you found out discovered they had diabetes?
That is a very good question, Bernie. I'm making the assumption that it's adult onset type 2 diabetes. Mm-hmm. Number one, the patient has to get over when you tell a patient, and I've done this on several occasions in the office, well, Mr. So-and-so, you have diabetes. And usually you can see it in their eyes. The first thing they think of is, oh my God, I'm going to be like grandma. She's going to have to carry her insulin containers in a little cooler and put it in the refrigerator, et cetera, and I'm going to have to be sticking myself 3-4 times a day. Well, that might not be the best scenario. We treat diabetes 2 ways. Number one, there are some pills out there that we can give. And one of them, one common one is called metformin. And we usually start off with that. Number two, if the patient does require insulin, now we have what we have our insulin pens. And these is basically like a fountain pen in which the patient usually initially will only start giving them 1 injection at bedtime. But here again, it depends on how the numbers are. But one thing we have to also keep in mind, Bernie, is that I have a lot of patients who are new diabetics who we diagnose in the office. And it's one of the scenarios that I use is the Fred Sanford scenario. Many of my patients have seen the show Sanford and Son, in which Fred, when he gets in a fight with his son Lamont, he says, "Louise, I'm coming to join you." And he says that because he's faking a heart attack. Well, with diabetics, sir, you have to look at it as when the person is diagnosed as being a diabetic, he or she has already had their first heart attack. And it's the doctor's responsibility to make sure that he or she doesn't have the big one. Because if those blood sugars aren't controlled, the most common cause of death with diabetics is heart attacks.
I never realized that.
Number two, many of the patients that are on dialysis units that are being dialyzed, no matter where you go in the United States, are Afro-American patients. And guess what, Bernie? Many of them have diabetes that have been out of control.
I didn't realize the relationship between diabetes and heart disease.
Heart disease as well as chronic kidney disease.
Right.
So when we start medications, it's more than just controlling the blood sugars. So typically what we'll do is we will put that person on a statin drug like simvastatin or atorvastatin, which is Lipitor or Zocor. Those are cholesterol-lowering drugs. And the rationale for that is that we're trying to prevent the diabetes affecting the heart, therefore the patient doesn't have a heart attack long term. We're not talking tomorrow.
Sure.
We're looking at the patient 5, 10, 15 years down the road. We also put the patient on a blood pressure medicine, which is called an ACE inhibitor. A generic name is lisinopril or Prevnar. Those medicines help protect the kidneys from kidney failure. Wow. So, Bernie, you could come into my office not on one medication, and I find out that you're a diabetic, and before you know it, you're on 3 drugs. We also might put the patient on an aspirin, that's 4. And many times the patient, if it's not explained well to the patient, it's like they failed. It's not that they failed, it's that relationship that you have with that doctor, what we're trying to do is preventing some catastrophic disease states down the road.
Sure. Well, less than a minute left. Once again, we need to know how to reach you and when we can reach you.
The best way to reach me is in my office is area code 314-721-6936.
And you're located?
And we're located in Clayton, Missouri, and we are there Monday through Friday.
And if one call that number, they can make an appointment, the one that's on the screen.
They can make an appointment, and we have same-day appointments available, sir.
Dr. Melvin Butler, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I've learned a lot, and I'm quite sure that our viewers have learned a lot, too. All I can say is wish you the best, sir.
All right. Take care, sir.
Anytime I can help you, let me know. And I'm sure when I need your help, I'll come running.
All right.
And thank you so much. And each and all of you, thank you for viewing The Bernie Hayes Show and NLAC TV, channel 24.2. We need your help and support. Thank you so much. And please, if you're not vaccinated, get your shots. See you next time.